They want to restore man's lost unity and patch together that which technical advances have separated. But only one way to accomplish this ever occurs to them, and that is to use technical means. Since the human sciences are applications of technical means, this entails rounding up those elements of the human personality that are still free and forcing, reintegrating them into the expanding technical order of things. Until recently, we were obliged to think of man as divided in his relation to the technical world. One part of him was given over completely to the monster and subjected to the interior and exterior rules. But the other part he could keep for himself, his inner life, his family life, his psychic life. All possible diversity will have disappeared, and the human race will have become a block of complete and irrational solidarity. Total integration. Many more aspects of the human personality have been exposed to the technical society, and today very nearly the entire human race is experiencing this progressive cleavage of personality. The average man, with his sentimental and intellectual attachments to the past, suffers acutely. Rare are the men who have so completely renounced the inner life as to hurl themselves gladly and without regret into a completely technicized mode of being. Such persons may exist, but it is probable that the joyous robot has not yet been born. The human being must be completely subjected to an omnipotent technique, and all his acts and thoughts must be the object of the human techniques. Those men, undoubtedly men of goodwill, who are so preoccupied with the technical restoration of man's lost unity, certainly have not willed things as they have turned out. Their error lies much more in not having clearly seen genuine alternatives. The conscientious psychologist, sympathetic though he may be to human suffering, does not even consider alternative solutions to the problem. For him, technique imposes a technical solution. And this solution indeed restores unity to the human being, but only by virtue of the total integration of man into the process which originally produced his dismemberment. And that is a comforting view of history. But it seems to me that the exact opposite is true. That this development adds to the technical problems by offering a partial solution to old problems, itself based on the very methods that created the problems in the first place. This is the age-old procedure of digging a new hole to fill up an old one. However, we can be confident that the final result will be that technique will assimilate everything to the machine. The ideal for which technique strives is the mechanization of everything it encounters. The technical age continues to advance, and we cannot even say that we are at the peak of its expansion. In fact, some decisive conquests remain to be made, man among others, and it is hard to see what is to prevent technique from making them. Thus, even if this is not a question of a new factor, it is at least clear now what the phenomenon involves and what it signifies. They must contribute to making man a mass man, and help put an end to what has hitherto been considered the normal type of humanity. The type that will emerge and the type that will disappear will be the subjects of a forthcoming work. For the moment, it suffices to establish concretely the tendencies of our human techniques to create the mass man. I shall refer to one other striking phenomenon of involuntary psychological collectivism: advertising. The primary purpose of advertising technique is the creation of a certain way of life. And here it is much less important to convince the individual rationally than to implant in him a certain conception of life. The object offered for sale by the advertiser is naturally indispensable to the realization of this way of life. Now, objects advertised are all the result of the same technical progress and are all of identical type from a cultural point of view. Therefore, advertisements seeking to prove that these objects are indispensable refer to the same conception of the world, man, progress, ideals, in short, life. Indeed, American, Soviet, and Nazi advertisements are an inspiration closely akin. They express the same conception of life, despite all superficial differences of doctrine, but they nonetheless represent pretty much the level of our modern life. Advertising offers us the ideal we have always wanted, And that ideal is certainly not a heroic way of life. Technique integrates everything. It avoids shock and sensational events. Man is not adapted to a world of steel. Technique adapts him to it. Technique thus provides a model. It specifies attitudes that are valid once and for all. The anxiety aroused in man by the turbulence of the machine is soothed by the consoling hum of a unified society. But when technique enters into every area of life, including the human, it ceases to be external to man and becomes his very substance. It is no longer face-to-face with man, but is integrated with him, and it progressively absorbs him. In this respect, technique is radically different from the machine. This transformation, so obvious in modern society, is the result of the fact that technique has become autonomous.